Okay, so 3 reasons not to buy the Infinix Note 7. But before we go ahead, I would appreciate if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel, because that would help me out a lot. Again, you don't have to do this, but I would appreciate if you do. The first reason, outdated hardware. Now let's note that the Note, so let's bear in mind that the Infinix Note 7 is a more premium offering from Infinix, alongside the Zero and maybe the Hot. So we're just going to judge it off of that. Starting with the display. It's a 720p LCD display. It's a huge display, but it's 720p. That is the same display as the newly announced Smart 5. So an entry-level smartphone has the same resolution as the more premium smartphone. In 2020, if your flagship doesn't have a 1080p display at least with OLED or AMOLED, then is it really, a premium flagship? Still on the display, let's talk about the actual bezels on this thing. I mean, I am impressed. Top half of the phone, it's quite good, but the chin on the Infinix Note 7 is not acceptable by 2020 standards. I mean, I feel like the Note 7 should have a way higher screen to body ratio than 83.7%. The bezels on this thing, let's shrink it down. The ports though, a micro USB in 2020. I mean, Type-C has been available for God knows how long, but for some reason, the Note 7 in 2020 still has a micro USB 2.0 port. I mean, the only good news is that the 08, which was released a couple days ago, I think, has a Type-C port. So hopefully the trend would continue. The second reason is the processor. Now, for a while, Infinix have been using the MediaTek processors, which is more of a budget-oriented chipset. And to be fair, the G70 on the Note 7 is actually pretty good. But it's not as good as, say, the Snapdragon 665, which has a faster CPU speed with 4 cores clocked at 1.8 GHz and 4 cores clocked at 2 GHz, compared with the MediaTek G70, which has 2 cores clocked at 2 GHz and the remaining 6 at 1.7 GHz. So it's faster, and you kind of wonder, why didn't Infinix go with a faster processor? I mean, yes, it is more expensive, but I think the reason is quite similar to what Fisayo said in his video. Smartphone companies have contracts with manufacturing companies, the companies that manufacture their chipsets or their displays. So it is possible that they are under contract. So we can only hope that these contracts are about to expire, because we kind of want to see some change in the display front as well as, hardware. The third reason, every year there seems to be new releases. So you sometimes have to think to yourself, what's the difference between last year's and this year's? And then you then decide whether to buy it or not. So it is important that we as well look at the Note 6 and see how much of a change, how much of an improvement is there between the Note 6 and the Note 7. And to be fair to the Note 7, there are some really good improvements, like the camera, the size of the screen, the battery. But it's obviously on this list because there are some disadvantages, some things I think should have been included in the Note 7. 2 things. One is the display. The Note 6 had a 1080p AMOLED display, but for some reason, the Note 7 has a 720p LCD display. We've talked about that before. A flagship from Infinix, from any company, should not have a 720p LCD. It shouldn't, okay? So the fact that they just made that change, wasn't, it was off. Like, what makes a Note a Note? Like, what's the difference between the Note and the Hot or the Zero? I think it's the pen, So you would think that they would try to improve and reduce latency, from the Note 6 on the Note 7, but they didn't. They literally took it completely away. I'm pretty sure that there are people out there who buy the Note just because of the pen. But now they've removed that, and it just kind of makes, me question the existence of the Note 7. But I don't know, that's just my opinion anyway. So yeah, that's basically it. I mean, there are still some little things, like the lack of glass on the back of the phone. I don't know if that counts. No wireless charging. Those are, I guess, nitpicking. But the fact that max recording is still at 1080p, 30 frames per second is bonkers. You'd imagine 4K at least, because it's been 1080 for a really long while now. We also have the problem with Android. They only basically get just 1 year of software updates, and then after that it's on your own. The cameras, for some reason, it's kind of weird. We have a 48 megapixel sensor, then a 2 megapixel depth sensor, a 2 megapixel macro lens. I mean, 48 and then 2. You'd imagine that they just added the other 3 cameras just so that they can say they have a quad camera setup. Again, it isn't such a bad phone, okay? Because I'm kind of making it look like it's a bad phone. So yeah, the Infinix Note 7, these are the reasons not to buy it. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, especially with reference to the stylus. Do you think Infinix should have removed it or improved it? I don't know, let me know in the comment section down below. But yeah, that's been it, and I will see you in the next video.